Hello, welcome to Summerfest Online 2020. Thank you very much for coming along to view these presentations. Just a quick reminder that we have a number of exhibitors in the exhibitors hall. If you want to go along and have a quick browse, maybe do some shopping, then we'd love to see you. And a quick reminder too about our wonderful sponsors, Yayo Hemp Products and Butte Island Cheese. They're also in the exhibitors hall and they'd love to see you too. If you've enjoyed the show, please remember this is a free event, and if you'd like to make a small donation, you'd be very welcome. Please go to the Friends of VegFest page to make a donation. And a reminder too, we have another show in November, London Online, and in next March, Plant Powered Expo. And you can find out all about that on VegfestUK. Thanks very much and enjoy the presentation.
Hi, I'm Kathy Devine. Thank you for joining me today, and big thanks to VegfestUK for having me, and Katrina Fox and the Vegan Women's Leadership Network for the invitation. I've been asked to speak about navigating veganism and activism as someone with Asperger's and various disabilities due to medical conditions. I'll start with a little bit about me. Regarding veganism, I've been vegan for about 15 years and vegetarian 10 years prior to that. My first vegan project started in 2009 and was an interview-based blog, vegansarcool.com, at a time when vegans were considered not cool at all. That website is on hiatus for now. I then went on to publish 5 vegan books, including Plant-Powered Women and Plant-Powered Men and Vegans Are Cool. After that, I started a magazine called Australian Vegans Journal. The e-versions are available for free from my website, australianvegans.com.au. During that time, I also started conferences called the Plant-Powered Women Leadership Conference Series, and this was to give vegan women a stage to be seen and heard. My latest project is a book called Golden Age Politics, and it's a big call out for ethical leadership in politics and encourages vegans to get into leadership positions everywhere. It is now available on Kickstarter for pre-order. Regarding disabilities and chronic illness, I have 2 genetic illnesses, congenital adrenal hyperplasia and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And in addition, I have Asperger syndrome, which is now officially part of the autism spectrum. Juggling disabilities and vegan advocacy and activism can be tricky, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. How can we make activities to promote veganism more accessible to people with disabilities? By making it more accessible, more people can join in and do the work, and more people can feel included. It's a win-win. Okay, so let's get started. Firstly, please excuse me for referring to my notes. I have a shocking short-term memory, and it takes a lot of my available energy to memorize content, so I will refer to my notes to be more effective during the talk. The first point I would like to share is that when you have a disability or chronic illness, it can be very hard to plan. Even with the best of intentions, sometimes we cannot attend a vegan event. This is a big generalization, and I'm speaking about myself and those like me who are in this situation where we cannot easily predict from day to day our ability levels. If our symptoms flare up on that day, we simply can't go, and it's that simple. So now I will run through some of the potential obstacles people with disabilities face when attempting to participate in activism activities and suggest some solutions. So the first one is about mobility. Sometimes this can be invisible. So some people cannot stand for a long period of time or are not able to walk very far. This prevents people from joining an event. If there is no mention of seating and it's clear that the activity will involve a lot of walking without a break, such as at rallies and protests. So a way to be more inclusive would be to include seating at the event and include a statement about it in your marketing materials. And perhaps if it's a big walking event, have an area for people that can't walk the course to sit and participate in their own way. The second point is about vision and hearing impairments. So you can include captions or a transcript and clear audio to help your activism reach more people and be more accessible. And include image descriptions on your visual posts. This applies to websites, social media, and wherever you are communicating. The next point, number 3, is about neurodiversity. This includes, but is not limited to, people with autism and ADHD. Neurodiverse people can have different solutions and see things differently. When we are all on social media, we don't always know who we're communicating with. So their communication style may seem different, and I would encourage you to be kind and non-judgmental always and assume nothing. Number 4, people with disabilities and chronic illnesses have a varying capacity to do activism and to be present on social media. We don't always, so we need to resist the urge to judge people who are absent from social media or from events and campaigns. We never know what people are going through. Compassion for our fellow activists and vegans is important. Supporting each other creates a united team for longevity in a movement that is prone to burnout. Point 5 is, the more accessible you make your events, the more inclusive your events will be. It's obvious. Have a statement about it on your events page so people with disabilities feel confident about attending. Otherwise, they will likely assume that it's not going to be a disability-friendly event. And have a contact person listed on your website that potential attendees can contact in case they need to ask something about their particular situation. This will assist in alleviating anxiety and make you a more approachable organisation. Going out in public for people with disabilities can cause a lot of anxiety, so realising this and taking steps to counteract it can help people with disabilities feel more confident about attending. Number 6 was about comparing people. So no one knows what it's like to be in your body except for you. So it's best not to compare people and say, if Bob can do it, why can't you, for example? I've had this said to me, and I can tell you it's not really helpful. Accept people when they say they can't attend something, and instead ask how an event can be more accessible. Number 7 is about considerate communication. So not everybody is comfortable talking about their disabilities and chronic illnesses with strangers or acquaintances. You think about, would you be fine with talking about your private details with strangers? So wheelchairs and walking sticks and frames are visible. Unless they offer their story, don't ask someone you've known for like 0 minutes about why they are in a wheelchair or use a walking stick. It's amazing how clueless and insensitive members of the public can be with their comments. The most common line I get is, "You're way too young to be using a walking stick." Firstly, I'm not that young. And secondly, people of all ages can have mobility issues for a variety of reasons. And walking sticks are not just for the elderly. Now I'll go through a few quick awareness points about Asperger's and autism. The first point is, if you've met one person with autism, it means you've met one person with autism. It is a spectrum, and it means people, and it presents differently across genders as well, and it's best to know, to get to know an individual instead of making assumptions about them. Okay, secondly, people with autism often experience sensory problems, and the degree to which this is an issue will vary from person to person. Because of this, their brain can get overwhelmed by too much sensory input. Personally, I have extreme sensory problems. I get dizzy very fast in a noisy environment, for example. This is an example of an invisible disability until, of course, it becomes visible and can manifest in fainting or another outer manifestation, such as a meltdown, which is when someone cannot handle any more sensory input and they express their distress. I would ask you to connect with your innate compassion if you ever see someone distressed like this and realize that it's extremely painful to experience this level of sensory overload. Help the person find a quiet place as soon as possible. Leave a drink of water and a snack if possible as well, and have someone stay close by in case they need further assistance, and just let them relax. Talking to someone and demanding a lot from them in terms of a response in this kind of situation won't usually help. They need recovery time. And this is the scenario for an adult. If this is about a child, obviously locate their parent and guardian as soon as possible. The next point on the autism awareness is about selective mutism. Selective mutism occurs for some people on the autism spectrum, and as the name suggests, it's when a person suddenly can't speak when usually they are verbal. So for me, it happens when I'm fatigued and my brain is overloaded with sensory inputs, and when I try to speak, nothing comes out. Or sometimes a few words come out, but it's disjointed. It's another example of when an invisible disability quickly becomes visible. For me, it is a very difficult moment, and it's impossible to explain to anyone what's happening for obvious reasons. And ideally in this situation, I go and rest and get some energy and hopefully some ability back. If you happen to be in a conversation with someone experiencing selective mutism, again, bring your compassion to the forefront and realize that this is out of their control. If they need to find a quiet place, help with that. If they're happy to keep communicating, give them extra time to get their words out. And I would please ask, don't talk over them or assume what they want to say. Assist them with communicating if that's what they're desiring, but ask them first. And lastly, never look down on people who are non-verbal, either temporarily or permanently. Assume nothing about their IQ or ability based on their verbal ability. And one of my best friends has an intellectual disability and a limited vocabulary, and I respect him the same as everybody else. Not a token respect, but a real respect. He has different abilities. He's very sensitive and intuitive, for example. And his contribution to the world may be different, but it is valuable all the same. And next point is, when you're running an event, aim to have a quiet room that is away from the main hub of noise and activity for people who need a break. This will suit not only people on the autism spectrum, but also introverts and highly sensitive people, which psychologist Elaine Aron states is around 20% of people. And I can consult with your organization in helping to make your space or event more accessible for people with autism. And for more tips, awareness, and solutions, you can see my Instagram dedicated to this. It is at AskTheAspie. The final point for this section is, if you're looking for a unique solution to a problem, invite a person with autism to your strategy meeting. We think differently and can bring a fresh perspective to an issue. Actually, large corporations are hiring people on the autism spectrum to get the edge over their competitors who still recruit with a neurotypical workforce in mind. So I would suggest to hire an Aspie or an autistic and experience the difference. People with disabilities want to be included and want to contribute as activists and advocates for veganism as much as anyone else does. With a little bit of planning and some accommodations, more people can join in and create the vegan world that we are striving for. Okay, one of the last topics I want to talk about today is armchair activism. So, telling people who only do social media or other forms of activism at home that they aren't doing enough or that street activism is the most effective is really inconsiderate and just ignorant, because not everyone can do street activism, and invisible disabilities do exist, as I've mentioned. And like, for example, chronic pain is an example where you don't know how much a person is suffering on the inside. So we need to be aware of how insensitive such comments can be. And actually, no one really knows which activism is the best. Some people are completely repulsed by street activism, and some people actually go vegan because of it. So basically, we need to drop our egos and increase our awareness and acceptance. So another thing is telling someone with an invisible disability that you look great or fine is ignorant and dismissive of the suffering that they are going through. And please don't assume anything and listen more. Okay, in terms of promoting veganism to the public, avoid health shaming people at all costs. Again, assume nothing, stay open to questions and concerns from pre-vegans, and answer them sincerely so they will feel confident to be able to embrace veganism given their current health situation. And please don't promise miracles, and emphasize the ethical reasons to go vegan. That is the long-term sustainable basis from which veganism can flourish. Okay, and so regarding vegan restaurants, aim to make them accessible to everyone. Think about it in the planning stages. Even in big cities with lots of vegan restaurants, there can be very few that are actually wheelchair accessible. If we campaign for everyone to be vegan and encourage people to eat at vegan restaurants, we need to make them accessible. And regarding the physical positioning of people in wheelchairs, be mindful of not putting people in the corner or somewhere alienating and separate from others at events and restaurants. Similarly, if people in wheelchairs are given a good position at the event, we shouldn't direct microaggressions at them like, wow, lucky you getting such a great spot. Okay, there is much more that should be covered in this topic, including body shaming and using ableist language. But just quickly, I will mention a couple regarding language. So using autistic as an insult, please don't ever do that. And using IQ as an insult is also not nice. And using medical conditions as insults, such as schizophrenic, is just not cool. Please don't do this. I've seen a lot of this on social media with vegans insulting people by using these words, and it's just not nice. Disabled people and animals don't exist to be your inspiration. They don't exist to uplift you or make you feel good about yourselves. So just be mindful of that. And just to finish, I'm also constantly learning about other people's conditions and how I can be better at supporting them and being more inclusive. The key I have found is to genuinely care and listen. Okay, thank you for tuning in. And lastly, I would like to thank members of the Vegan Chronic Illness and Disability Support Facebook group for their contributions, specifically Amula Merritt, Carolyn Iena, Gertrude Kazoo, Reggie Adams, and Lana Nim, and the website criphumanimal.org. Thank you.